Full disclosure, let's see, can you guys see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Good morning, Bob.
Morning.
Full disclosure, I had two things I really wanted to share today and I couldn't decide, so I'm going to share them both. So I'm going to go really, really fast because I wanted to make sure that I got both of them in because I just couldn't decide. And also on another note, many of you know this, good morning, Dawn, that I am actually not a coffee drinker. And I've never understood people that wake up, no judgment. I've just never understood people that wake up in the morning and like they can't function until they have coffee. I don't know if she's on or not, but my sister-in-law, Caitlin, is that way. She has to have coffee like instantly in the morning, first thing. I've never understood that. Well, a couple weeks ago, I got introduced to a medicine ball from Starbucks, which is also known as a honey citrus mint tea something something. So I now understand the Starbucks addiction. I had to have Adam go and get me one this morning at like 7 o'clock. So I'm feeling everyone else's Starbucks addiction now that I've never felt before. So would love to hear what you guys are most grateful for today. I don't know if you guys are feeling this, but I feel like everybody around me has had COVID lately. It's been nuts. So I'm grateful for health 100% today. Yeah, see, Caitlin is drinking her. Yes, Monica, I know I was grateful for that too. I missed yesterday, but I am doing hot yoga today. I love people doing these February challenges, fitness challenges. I think that is so fun and awesome. Back in your small group. Yep, grateful to get up and walk. Oh, Dawn, 15 degrees. You are braver than I to walk in the 15-degree weather for sure. So yes, would love to hear still what you guys are grateful for in the chat. And I'm going to get started because I have a lot today. So many of you know I'm a big Craig Groeschel fan. He has a new book coming out called Winning the War in Your Mind. It's not out yet. It actually comes out on February 16th. So I believe that's next Tuesday. And I did a pre-order release because I'm in a little mentor group with him. And so also I think anybody can go on now and get it and get a copy of his masterclass. And so I've been studying that and it has been awesome. So I want to share a couple of things with you since we do talk about mindset, and this is all about winning the war in your mind. And then I have another little quick Craig Groeschel, John Maxwell thing I want to share with you too. So these are two of my favorite quotes. And Craig actually starts the book with them both. Your life is always moving in the direction of your strongest thoughts. So what you think will determine what you become. And so he talks about a couple of different things, but first we're going to go through three quick things that he shares. And he says, we need to study not what great leaders or people do, but how they actually think. Because we can watch what people do, but really how they think is more important. And so number one, if you want to study how great people think, or you could say great leaders, because remember, every one of us is a leader. Number one, you have to find a leader or a person who is several steps ahead of you. And so what Craig says about this is no matter if you're trying to be a better leader or a better business owner or a better preacher or a better realtor or whatever that looks like, maybe you want to be better in a personal way or you're fighting addiction, whatever that looks like, you have to find someone that's several steps ahead of you, because someone just 1 or 2 steps ahead of you may see tweaks in how they think. But if you find somebody that's 20 steps ahead of you, you'll see leaps. You'll be able to see a completely different way of how they do things. I see. Thank you for being on, Dick Dillingham, today. And he's someone who I've always tried to really model after as a leader, because he is leaps ahead of me and has been, and he is amazing at what he does. So instead of going and finding somebody that's just a couple steps ahead of you, you got to find somebody that's leaps ahead of you. He also talks about the gift of disorientation with this. And here's what he says. He says that when you look for people that are leaps ahead of you, they're so far ahead of you that they just drop little mind-blowing ideas. We call those like nuggets of gold or mind-blowing bombs that'll shift your thinking ahead so much quicker than somebody who's just a couple of steps ahead of you. And so what that does is it has you stretch your mind and it pushes you forward to thinking much quicker. Those of you who have coaches in your business, You may feel like maybe they are really, leaps ahead of you. And it's been most of you, I think I would say this about my coaches, that she really pushes the way that I think, and she stretches me in that sense. And it's so good for your mindset. Number 2 that he says is you have to watch for where you push back the most. This is the one that we don't like to do. So whenever you find yourself disagreeing with something or saying, oh, that's not true for me, or that doesn't apply for me, you actually may need to pay closer attention to that, because that may be a clue that you have the most to learn in that area. So if you are thinking, no, I don't really need to care about that, or I don't need to worry about that, he says that a lot of times when we say that, it's because we don't have the context to know what someone else is talking about. They could be so far ahead of us that we actually don't understand their context. And so we've got to really clue into the areas where we push back the most. And he says you have to be a student, not a critic, when you are trying to change the way you think. And I love that quote, because sometimes it's easy for us to be critical of other people or of other leaders. But the reality is that when you're trying to change your mindset and you're trying to change the way that you think, which I do this, I intend to work on this every single day, you have to put yourself in a student mindset. And then the third one is you have to be willing to be wrong. And that is hard for us sometimes, right? Craig says the biggest area of growth will be where you are wrong in your thinking. And I think some of you would probably agree it's hard for us to be wrong, right? However, he says importance isn't based on how much you do, but on what you do, and that it matters. The best leaders trust other leaders to know what's going on and where they may be wrong. And so he says that a lot of people, we don't like to receive feedback, or we don't like to be told when we're doing something wrong. But actually, John Maxwell says this all the time too. And Craig said this, he appreciates and welcomes when someone says to him, hey, what if there were a better way to do this? Or let me kind of help you challenge the way that you're thinking on that, because he wants to get better. He wants to grow every single day. And so he says the best leaders and the best people will be with the best mindsets. They'll think differently than the rest. So when you think of somebody who is an amazing leader, or somebody who just has such a great mindset, 9 times out of 10, it's because they think differently than some of the other people that you may be used to being around. He talks about the best leaders. They do these things. They don't control, they empower. And remember, sometimes I think when we hear the word leader, some of us think, oh, I'm not really a leader. Well, you are. People are watching you, and you are leading even when you don't know it. So the best leaders, they don't control, they empower. They don't spend, they invest. The best leaders don't think problems, they think possibilities. And the best leaders don't motivate, they inspire. And that also reminds me of one of my favorite quotes during the pandemic is an Albert Einstein quote. And he says, in the middle of difficulties is where opportunities lie. So sometimes it's easy for us to think a lot of problems right now, but the reality is that great leaders and great people with great mindsets, they think possibilities. And so Craig gives you 2 action questions. I would really encourage you guys to write those down and think about those, and maybe spend some time. If you lead a team, spend some time with your team on these, or mastermind with some of your peers. Are you willing to be wrong? What's one area where you might need to challenge your thinking in order to grow, succeed, or see a perspective that you might have missed? So is it easy for you to be willing to be wrong? Or do you really struggle with that? And he says, we all have a leader we admire and would love to learn from. So I'd love for you to write down 3 questions that you'd like to ask them about the way that they think about leadership. And the more that you can ask other people and understand from their perspective what they think makes a great leader, the more that you'll be able to grow and develop in your own mindset and in your own leadership as well. And I shared this story yesterday with an ALC that I was speaking with in a Keller Williams office in North Carolina. Some of you have probably heard this. Dick, you'll probably know this too, but I was amazed that at the John Maxwell Exchange, the first one I went to 3 years ago, some of you are familiar with Diana Kokoska. Others of you won't know who she is. But Diana, as learning based, as the height of the pinnacle that I would feel like she is in leadership, she showed up with like 320 something questions in a little notebook. She carries around this little notebook and she just has question after question after question after question. And she said it's because she never wants to be in a situation where she meets somebody that she could learn from and she can't think of a question to ask them. And so that taught me the best lesson ever. And ever since then, I've never shown up somewhere where I'm going to hear somebody great that I admire without having questions for them, because you just never know. You might get the opportunity to ask. And so think about a leader that you admire and you'd love to learn from and write down some questions that you would have for them. The next part that I want to go to, I don't know if Troy Marsh is on, but he and I have been totally obsessing over this podcast. Craig Groeschel did an interview with John Maxwell on one of his latest episodes in his podcast. And I would highly encourage you, we'll post it in the Facebook group, but I would highly encourage you to go listen to it if you haven't. It's probably, I listened to it again this morning getting ready. And it's probably like the fifth or sixth time I've listened to it now. But he unpacks some of Craig's favorite quotes that John has said. And so I really want to share a couple of these with you and just hope that you get some nuggets that drop out of them. So number one, and if you've ever studied John Maxwell, you know that he says everything rises and falls on leadership. And he says it really is that simple and that important to think about. Everything always rises and falls on leadership. When people leave a team or a group, they typically don't leave the models or the systems or the ways. They leave the leader, or they leave the manager, or they leave the lack thereof. And he says everyone can learn to be a leader, because when the leader gets better, everyone else gets better. And I always feel like it's so important to be able to put yourself around other leaders and just around other great people who you feel like are, again, leaps ahead of you. And sometimes our ego, that hurts a little bit, but you kind of have to put that aside. For people of faith, remember, ego is edging God out. And I love, that's one of my favorite acronyms ever. But Craig always says, when the leader gets better, everyone gets better. The second quote that he loves of John's is, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Many of you have heard this before. I think that may have even originated from Zig Ziglar or someone, I can't remember who. Or actually, he says Theodore Roosevelt sometimes. But John talks about that leadership should be motivating, not manipulating. So whether you're leading a small group, whether you're leading your family, I talked to somebody yesterday who has 3 teenage girls in her house right now. And she said, I'm struggling to lead them. Like, they're driving me nuts. They know more than I know. And it's driving me crazy. And so you have to really think about that, because leaders get in trouble when they stop caring about their people. And one of my favorite John Maxwell quotes is, when you stop, this might be in here somewhere. Oh yeah, it's at the bottom. When you stop loving the people you lead or the people that you're around, then you need to stop leading them. Because your motives can change, and it changes from motivating them to manipulating. And really, when manipulating happens, sometimes we don't even realize that, but it's for our advantage, not theirs. And that's never a good place. And John uses this principle as a safeguard. And he said, if he ever finds himself caring more about himself and his goals than about the people around him, then he knows it's time to immediately adjust his behavior. And that can sometimes be hard to do. However, I think you just have to be aware of it. And Linda McKissick has taught me one great thing, that every 3 to 5 years, all of us look up and say, where's mine and what's next? And so you have to constantly be thinking about the people in your world. And if you lead people, the people that led you and the people that you are leading, and you have to begin to adjust your behavior if you start to care more about yourself and your goals. He says, if you really do care for your people, but have trouble expressing it, which some people do, you just have to be open and honest. Address your leadership style directly. Let your people or your team or your family know how you show devotion, trust, and love, either at work or in your family. And you can do both different ways. But he says one of the greatest areas of weakness for leaders is when they don't admit that they need help or understanding. And it can be hard to admit that you need help sometimes. However, the greatest and most successful leaders and people, if you study really successful people, speaking of, is anybody watching? Adam's been making me watch it. First, I didn't like it. And now I like it. Like a maybe Undercover Billionaire. I can't think of what it's called. Type in the chat if you know. But Grant Cardone and 2 other people, they're going undercover. And they basically get dropped in an unknown town for 90 days with $100, and they're not allowed to use any of their resources, any money, anything. and they're supposed to go and build connections to build $1 million business within 90 days. It is mind blowing. I was blown away, not to squirrel, but you guys, Grant Cardone flew on his private jet, got dropped in the middle of, I think he's in Colorado somewhere. I can't remember where. And he gets off with $100 and he has nowhere to sleep. Dawn, you would love this show. He has nowhere to sleep. He doesn't have anything. They give him a car. They give him all these old beat up cars. And he is smart enough. He goes to an RV lot. He goes to an RV lot and he starts talking with the manager and he starts asking him about his business and asking him about his goals. And he says, I don't want to do anything, but just, you don't have to pay me. You don't have to do anything for me. I just want to show up and just help you grow your business. And the only thing I need in return is just for 3 nights, could I sleep in one of these RVs, like out on your parking lot? And the guy lets him, the manager lets him. And so from there, he starts to build this relationship. And I knew somebody was going to ask me what network that was on. I'll find it. I'll think of it. But anyway, I can't squirrel into that. Maybe I'll do a Wednesday morning mindset on that actually, because it's such a good show. But what he says is that he forgot what it was like to go back and be weak in being a business owner or in being an entrepreneur or a leader. And so he had to completely readjust the way that he thinks. The third, it is on Discovery. Is it Discovery Channel, Jenny? I think it is. Okay. We're watching it on a Discovery app, actually, now that you said that. It just reminded me of that. Thank you. The third quote is, leaders must be close enough to relate to others, but far enough ahead to motivate them. And John always talks about this, and he says on the podcast, he said, close comes first. He wants friendships, not distant fans. So relating to people and caring for them comes before impressing them. You have to really build emotional capital. My coach and I talk about this all the time, Terry. You have to build emotional capital with people before you actually get the opportunity to lead them. He says, we impact people close up and we impress them from far away. So in the beginning of a career, leadership may be more of a caring connection than a competence connection. Some of you I see on this Zoom right now, and I just took over a Keller Williams office in Southern Indiana. And for me, it's about connecting with the people and the leaders in this office first before coming in and making a bunch of changes. And the reality is that you have to earn the right to do that. You have to come in and connect with them first. You have to know their goals. You have to understand where they want to get in their life before you can do that. He says a leader must also demonstrate experience and foresight that outpaces those that they are leading. They have to see it far ahead. Over time, if a leader only develops the caring side, people will find that they have a friend, but not a leader. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Because you want to be close enough to develop the friendship, but you have to be far enough out that you actually can lead them as well. And he says, how do you communicate care to many in a large organization? Some of you are leading small groups and some of you are leading really large organizations. And he says, unconditional love is equal for everyone, but not everyone gets equal time. So those who put in the effort to excel, they may actually be the ones who get more time than the ones who don't, because teachability starts at the top. And a lot of times you hear this, you want to teach to like the very top and let everybody else rise up instead of teaching to the bottom. And then the last two, let me just check the chat. Oh, yeah, Stephanie, you are. Yep. Awesome. Number 4 is you'll never change your life until you change what you do daily. The secret of your success is determined by your daily agenda. And he really talks about we overestimate what we can do tomorrow and we over exaggerate what we did yesterday, but we underestimate today. And so Craig talks a lot about you have to live in the present and you have to just be consistent. And sometimes that's hard to do, is the reality. But it's a wonderful asset is what he says. And consistency will bring unexpected returns in your life because consistency compounds. And a lot of you have probably heard that many times, but it's great to hear it again. And he says, sometimes we confuse success with the recognition of success. And I love, oh man, I wonder if I can read this to you really quickly. Some of you, this is not on the slide. I need to actually post this in our Facebook group. Hold on, let me find you this. Some of you have heard me read this. But there's a great book that we finished called Who, Not How. Hold on, let me see if I have it. Oh, yep, I do. Okay. And let me just read you this really quickly. And and I'll try to post a picture of this if I don't forget. Heather will help me remember because she remembers everything. It's in this book, Who Not How. It's the 10 ways that you know that you're being successful. And let me just read these to you really quickly. Maybe think about the one that resonates the most with you. Number 1, I can wake up every day and ask, what would I like to do today? Number 2, my passive revenue exceeds my lifestyle needs. Number 3, I can live anywhere in the world that I choose. Number 4, I'm working on projects that excite me and allow me to do my best work. Number 5, I can disappear for several months with no effect on my income. That one's up there for me. Number 6, there are no whiny people in my life. I feel like someone should say amen. Number 7, I wear my watch for curiosity only. Number 8, I have no time obligations or deadlines. Number 9, I wear whatever I want, anytime I want. And number 10 is I can quit anytime. And I love those because that truly it can be a definition of success. And if you think about it, like what is success to you? Because sometimes we do confuse recognition as success, and that might not really be what success is to you. So I just would challenge you to think about that. I'll post those in the group too. I love those. They're so good. Mine is definitely the disappear for maybe a minute, and everything be okay. And or the no whiny people. Number 5 is people may hear your words, but they feel your attitude. And this is so important all of the time. John says, attitude isn't the most important thing. It doesn't negate incompetence, but attitude is the difference maker. Some of you, we talk about all the time, incompetent people, and how it can get on your nerves. But the things that you can control, like your attitude, will ultimately trump the things that you can't control. Because the reality is we all have things that we can't control. And we all are going to continue to have things that we cannot control, but we can control our attitude. So we can't get angry about the things that we don't understand, because ultimately, if you choose the right attitude, then they'll make you a better person for it, because attitude is your choice, right? It's the choice that we have every single day. And I don't know about you guys, but sometimes it's easier than others to have a good attitude. It depends on the situation. And so you just have to think about that, though. You do get to wake up every day and you get to choose your attitude. And people can hear your words, but they'll feel your attitude. And I don't know if you guys feel like this or not, but yesterday I was giving an example. Can you think of certain people in your head that when they walk in a room, you're like, oh my gosh, I gotta go. I gotta figure out something else to do. I'm going the other way. I can't have their attitude affect Jenny just almost choked. I can't have their attitude affect me today, or their energy. And then on the opposite, you can think of other people that you hope that they walk into the room because you know that they're going to have a great attitude and they're going to have great energy and they're going to really lift you up. And so you have to think about that. Let's see. Oh, shoot. I don't have my little book right here. Oh man, yesterday, did I take a picture of it? Yesterday, I read the best thing in the John Maxwell Daily Reader. Rochelle will probably have it. She'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It was the last sentence. It said something about being people that, be the type of person that you attract those type of people instead of, oh shoot, I don't know. I'll find it and post it, but it was so good. I used it all day yesterday. I can't believe I'm blanking on that. If anybody has their John Maxwell Daily Reader next to them, it's like the last sentence on yesterday's day. But yes, Michelle, I love that. Tracy, yes, Tyler said last week, you have to put on an attitude every day. Yep, I wrote that down. I thought that was so good. So I just wanted to leave you guys with this. You'll never be a leader others love to follow if you aren't a leader who loves people. And remember, all of us are leaders in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And you have to love people. And I know some of us, we joke and say, people get on my nerves, or I don't really love people. But the reality is you wouldn't be around people if you didn't have a deep compassion for them. And that's so true. Hold on. Yes, Rochelle. Thank you, Stephanie. Yes. People always move towards someone who increases them and away from anyone who decreases them. How true is that? If I were a tattoo person, I would have that on my arm. People always move toward people who increase them and away from people who decrease them. And I think that that is so very true. So last thing I wanted to say was thank you. We've had over 75 people do their vision board pages for the year. It's not too late. If you haven't done yours, you can go to my website and do that. And I love seeing them. You guys have sent like some of the most awesome ones ever. And I really believe in the power of visualizing your goals. If you've done it and you haven't shared it, send it to me because I love seeing everyone's. But the ability to be able, I even put mine on my desktop, on my screensaver, on my computer, and everywhere else, because I really believe that we need to have our goals in front of us all the time. So awesome. Great job, Michelle. Thank you guys so much for being on. Hope you got some value out of today. And I just enjoy seeing you guys. Great turnout. Thank you. Thank you. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next Wednesday. See you guys. Bye. Thank you guys. Thanks, Dick. See you guys.